So welcome everybody. This is a bit of a weird setup. We've been trying to improvise how to do this in both online and in person. Thank you for joining also in person in the room. It's a bit of a busy morning this Tuesday in M365 conference. The keynote starts at 9. For anybody who's online, if you're wondering on why are people leaving the room at certain time, the keynote starts at 9. So after 2 live demos from the room, we have Sam who's doing the third demo online. So don't feel bad about it if you start moving into the keynote, because there's a 10-minute walk. I think Mark was saying 10-minute walk to the keynote. But welcome on the Microsoft 365 platform weekly community call. My name is Esa Juvonen. I'm a principal product manager in the Microsoft 365 community areas, working together with our partners in Power Platform as well. We have this call every single Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, and we do not cancel this call. That's why we're doing this live from here, even though we are basically everybody is presenting here as well. So but we just don't change the timing of this call. We keep on executing that every single week, which gives you also some kind of an idea if you ever want to stay up to date on what's happening. You know that it's 8 a.m. Tuesday when the call is happening. We do have other calls as well. We'll recap on those in a second. And I can't help myself. I just can't normally sit. Do I? Anyway. Cool. Let's get actually moving. So today we'll do a typical setup of a latest updates and news and assets which are available to get started in Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. We'll do a together mode picture, which will be a bit problematic with in person and online. I will film actually in person people, for example, in camera. We'll do a post edit on that one, so you can wave on there as well. And then we have 3 demos this call. Paolo, who's sitting in the room, he's going to do consuming Power Platform custom connectors in Microsoft Copilot Studio. Mark, who's also in the room, is kind of talking about vibe coding with apps on SharePoint Embedded, and some bits will be joining online and doing the last demo over there. For those who just joined, I already said this, the room most likely will get a bit less people in the room, because they will transition to the keynote at 15, quarter to 9. It will take 10 minutes walk to the keynote room, so don't feel bad about moving there as well. Bit of a chat bad that we are a bit competing, but it's okay. Now, in general, we do have a lot of assets to get started on Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. First of all, our YouTube channel. We publish a lot of videos every single day. There's on average roughly 2 videos every single day that are getting published over there, which are showing you how to get started on Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. A lot of content over there. We do have LinkedIn page and group. A lot of open source assets, a lot of samples. So if you're looking into getting started on Power Platform or M365, there's a lot of sample assets available. And all of these assets can be found from AKMS community home URL, or community.ms is the URL where you can go and find all of the different things, how to get started on topics. Now, we do have also a lot of community calls. This week, we again have 2 community calls. Luckily, we don't run into that week when we have 3. So we do have this Tuesday call, which is with Microsoft presenters. What it means is that the people who actually built the product and the features and capabilities, like Mark, or the people like cloud advocates who are promoting the capabilities, like Paolo in the room, are showcasing you the art of possible within the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. On top of that, we do have Power Platform monthly community call, Office Settings monthly community call, and then we have our 7 a.m. Thursday series, which is either Microsoft 365 Power Platform community call or Bio Connection SharePoint Framework, and those are with community demos. Everybody in the room are also welcome to show what they built within those demos as well, if they're interested. So two calls every single week, one from Microsoft, one from community. That's kind of the typical setup. All of those calls can be found at AKMS community calls URL, and we also have a meetup service, which is a great way to stay up to date on the upcoming agendas. So every single week, roughly on Thursday, we publish the upcoming agendas for upcoming week in the meetup service. You will get an email which will basically say, next week, this is the plan. And then you can decide, do you want to be live on the call, or do you want to catch up the call in the recording? Because in the YouTube channel, the recording will be published within 24 hours. Now, as mentioned, a lot of these calls actually do welcome community demos. So if you build something and you want to showcase what you built, you can actually sign up for a live demo as well. Now, these are not for productive demos, so this is not intended for ISVs and selling your product. But if you build something, it doesn't have to be open source, or if you start using, for example, Power Apps, you found a nice new feature and you really kind of, hey, this is interesting. I want to share how this works for some of the other people. You can sign up for the demo and we'll give you 15 minutes or 12 minutes a spot spots, depending on the call, and where you can actually demo. And we give you support for doing those demos as well. So you can kind of practice to be a better presenter as part of this setup. Now, we do have a lot of assets in the learn.microsoft.com. I'm getting started with Microsoft Cloud in M365 Power Platform. You can choose what is your chosen path on those. A lot of modules available for those setups. We also have a lot of samples available at the AKMS Community Samples URL. I think we're now in 2,300 samples, and this is a really great service and a website. All of the samples from GitHub, from Microsoft, and from community are actually in one location. So we're basically making it really easy for you to find a relevant sample. If you're looking, for example, Power SharePoint Embedded, Power Platform, and you'll find Steve's example on that one from that service and so on. So you can actually use a text box to find a relevant search topic for you. Now, we do also have our Sharing is Caring initiative. So you might be wondering, okay, I have my sample, or I want to actually start presenting, or I want to contribute my sample. What is this GitHub? Well, how do I actually get started? And that's why we have Sharing is David Warner, Sharing is Caring, the father of Sharing is Caring, in the room to explain what this is all about.
And we are both live from Las Vegas, right? We're in the same room. Really cool. Wow, this is so awesome. Yeah, so Sharing is Caring is a program we started to provide hands-on guidance, right? What does that mean? It means we're going to join live Teams calls together. We are going to work through a problem or a solution to that problem, and you'll get a contribution for it. So it's hands-on, it's safe space, absolutely no recording, so you're free to ask any and all questions you want without fear of thinking, should I be asking this question? I don't know. No one else asked this question, so maybe I shouldn't be asking this question. Then I don't ask this question, I don't learn. We want you to learn. So join the calls. There's one coming up a week from Monday, right? So get on that. We'll be scheduling it this afternoon. The form will be live and all that jazz. And then once you do contribute, we want to recognize you for the amazing work that you're doing, and that is our recognition program. So it is combined with Credly. It is accredited badges. They are real and official. Some cool ones like the Snippet Sorcerer, Powerful Devs, the SharePoint Hackathon. Those events just ended. We've got, of course, what is it? May. It's gonna be May, right? So we've got just our Star Wars theme badges that are just kind of, oh no, pause. We're working through the Wi-Fi here, so hopefully it's still recording and everything. But that is a community recognition program. So it's free, absolutely free. You're welcome to join. We do need you to opt in, though, so that we can connect your GitHub account to your email and then send you those badges. You can put them on your LinkedIn profile. You can put them on your bio. You can put them on your resume and share them with your managers. Let them know you're doing a great job. And it is absolutely free to do that. And if you don't know what a GitHub account is, sign up for Sharing is Caring, and we'll get you involved. All right. With that, back to Vesa.
Thank you, David. Now I can see online is fine. The in-person experience is a bit. Ryan's computer is now thinking something in the room, unfortunately. But you can at least hear us, so that's good. I can do mine. Oh, that's a robot. That's a different thing. Anyway, so let's actually get moving on. So we get to the live demos of today. So we do have a lot of events coming up all the time across the world. So obviously today we are in Las Vegas. For those who are in person, you probably are aware that you're in Las Vegas or you had a really rough night. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? But on top of that, there's a lot of other events as well. So Build is happening pretty soon in Seattle. That's in person and Seattle online option from May 19th to 22nd at buildmicrosoft.com. We also have the European Collaboration Summit coming up on Düsseldorf in May 26th to 28th. A lot of us will be there as well. That's actually 3 different conferences altogether: European Collaboration Summit, European AI and Cloud Summit, and also European BSAP Summit happening at the same time on that side of the pond. Then we have European Power Platform Conference coming up in June in Vienna. Really great opportunity to catch up with the community as well. On this side of the pond, we have the Seattle, Atlanta, Dallas in my TechCon 365 conferences happening. Great opportunities to stay up to date within the community as well. And then Power Platform Community Conference will be in here for those who are in person in MGM Grand in October 28th to 13th as well. Great conference as well. And then we are closing up to 2025 by Ignite, which will be also hybrid in-person and online event, in person in San Francisco. More details on that one pretty soon. And then the last bigger conference will be the Dublin European SharePoint Conference. I think it's nowadays European SharePoint M365 Azure Power Platform Conference. It's a really long name for that one. Now, On top of that, we do have a lot of events happening all around the world. You can actually catch all of those in communitydays.org URL. But there's a lot of events happening where you can meet people. Some of them are actually free events. Some of them might have a small cost, but you can always check the agendas and available events at communitydays.org. Now, a lot of news this week. We always catch up on what's happening across the different blogs and platforms, also in the news. David is copy-pasting the links in the chat for that one. And if you're watching the recording and you were like, hey, I wanted to double-check all of the different news which were happening, you can actually see those in the video description as well. So in the YouTube video, which goes live within 24 hours, you can see all of these links available. We're not going to spend too much time here because there's always too many news to cover. And some of the news will be rolling out this morning as well, because we're announcing, I guess, something in a keynote pretty soon. Now, on top of that, we do have our Copilot prompt library, which is a really, really cool setup as well. So we're basically sharing with the community, together with community, different Copilot prompts to learn how to use Microsoft 365 Copilot efficiently. And the prompt of the week this time is from Kara Bakura, and this is really about personal assistant, kind of a use case for the Copilot, but it's a really good example of a pretty descriptive prompt, which is then making the Copilot to adjust its behavior based on your business requirements. You can find all of these different options and prompts at AKM's prompt library. But then I guess it's time to get them out picture. So this is going to be now interesting. I will try to do this. I will record a video in here. We'll do a post edit of combined videos. David is going to do this online. We can't really do this together with online and to not online, but now we can see online people, and I will record some people in here, and let's put the recording on in online, and let's do some hand waving. Everybody, 3, 2, 1. Not bad, actually. I will combine these two feeds in a GIF animation. Will be good. Excellent. Always an interesting setup how we can do these things. It looks a bit better when we have 50 people in online in a single, but now it's combined, so we'll be good. Cool. I guess that's for that one. Then we go to the live demos of today. So we'll start with Paolo on consuming Power Platform custom connectors in Microsoft Copilot Studio. Then we go to Marc Windle. Marc is going to talk about SharePoint Embedded and vibe coding. And then Sam Betts is going to be there in online to do things. Now, we do this in this order so that everybody in the room can transition slowly away towards the keynote in 20 or 9:15. The keynote starts at 9. You don't want to miss that 9 with Jeff Teeper in the not the grand ballroom, the other one, the big one. MGM, yes, thank you. So it's a bit far away, 10 minutes walk. But we'll remind everybody on that one in room as we move to there. But Paolo, take it away.
Yep, I'll stand up as well, just to say hello to the audience, everyone. So yeah, today we are going to see a demo about how to consume a Power Platform custom connector in Microsoft Copilot Studio. And this demo is a part of a set of labs and demos that we have in the Copilot Developer Camp, which is a set of training materials that we provide to help you learn how to extend Microsoft 365 Copilot, whether you are a low-code or a pro-code developer. Here you can find the URL for the Copilot Camp. And in the labs, we have content which goes from the maker path to the code path, depending on what you want to do and build. And today, we are focusing our attention on the Microsoft Copilot Studio section, so the MCS series of labs. And if you will complete all of the labs in any of the pathways, you will also have a chance to get a badge. So why not doing that? So you will get a badge for each and every pathway, and you will get a specific badge if you will get all of the badges for all of the pathways. And the red one, the Sample Sensei one, if you will also share with the community a sample that you built on top of Microsoft 365 Copilot. But that said, let me move to the demo. I will sit down if you don't mind, because I need to work on my keyboard, but nothing personal, okay? So let me switch to the demo desktop. And what we are going to see today is a demo of an agent which can consume an external Power Platform custom connector. First of all, let's have a look at the agent in action so that you can understand what we are talking about. And then I will explain you how it works under the cover. This is an agent which hypothetically helps people in the HR department to manage candidates. And as such, we have functionalities like, for example, the option to get the list of candidates from an external service that we use to support this agent. As you can see here, I have a prompt, get all candidates from an external HR service. I'm a developer, so the prompt sounds quite a developer-oriented prompt. I apologize for that, but this is the prompt that will trigger my external connector. And as you will see soon, with a secure connection to my external API, I will be able to retrieve the list of candidates that I have in my external system. Now, what is interesting to notice is that behind the scene of this prompt, the agent was able to consume an external API that I'm going to show you right now. This is my API. As you can see right here in the terminal window, I've just got a request. And we can also see that the request was sent by my user. So we have authentication in place and we can have authorization in place, which is really cool from a security point of view. Now, from an implementation point of view, here is how I implemented my set of REST APIs, my function. This is an Azure function that I implemented using TypeScript. And in this one, we simply have the definition of the candidate object, which is the one that I return as the result of my request. And I have a get candidate operation, which will simply rely on a really simple JSON file with a fake list of candidates, just for the sake of keeping the demo simple and easy to recreate on your own environment. And here you can clearly recognize that we have the same candidates that we have got back in the agent. Now, the overall idea of this sample API is to get access to this information in a secure way, as I was telling you. So here we can see that inside the API, whenever we get a request, we also do a validation of a token, of an open authorization token that we get and we want to have in every single request we process. And when we validate the token, we also look for a specific permission scope in the token, which is called, or with name, hr.consume. Then I will not dig into all of the technical details about the token validation, but just to give you an idea, I rely on an API that we have on GitHub that one of my colleagues, Valdek Mastikart, implemented, which is the JWT validate or job validate. Using this JavaScript library, we can easily validate a token based on an Entra ID setup. So this API is also made available through an open API definition, which is this JSON file, through which I declare that I have my API/candidates endpoint, and through this one I can get all of the candidates. I define what a successful response will be. I define eventually what are the other APIs that I offer, like the capability to add a new candidate or to manage the list of candidates and stuff like that. Now, I have this API, and this is running locally on my machine, and I'm relying on a dev tunnel to make it available to the Power Platform. I also have in Entra ID, let me move the Teams window. In the Entra ID, I have a registration of an application. So we can go here under Application Registrations, and we can see that I registered an application called HR Service API, which is something that you need to do if you want to rely on Entra ID for security. This is the application which describes my API, so which declares the API that I'm offering to my consumers. You can see here there is the overview page with all of the general information like the application ID and the directory tenant, but now I'm interested in the Expose an API section. In fact, in this one, I'm offering an API with a permission scope called hr.consume, which is exactly and precisely the one I was showing you before in the source code of my Azure function. This hr.consume permission scope is offered to consumers using also this unique API URI that you can see right here, which is actually based on the unique client ID of my API application. Now, I have my application registered in Entra ID, so I'm exposing this API with this permission scope. In order to consume this API, I also need a consumer application. So still in Entra ID, I registered an HR Service Consumer app, and this one will be configured to have a client secret, for example, for the sake of handling the security and the retrieval of a token for this consumer application. And from an API permissions point of view, in this application, I granted the permission to access my HR service API with the HR.consume permission scope. So basically, this is the consumer application of my service API. And this consumer application will be used by the Power Platform to securely access and consume my API. How? Well, in the authentication section for this application, I have configured the web authentication platform. And here you can see there is a redirect URI, which looks like something generated by Microsoft, not by me. And that's the case. And I'm going to show you where you can get this kind of URL through the Power Platform. So now I have the actual implementation of my API as a TypeScript Azure function. I have the API application registered in Enter ID, and I have the consumer application registered in Enter ID. It is now time to configure my connector. So let me move to the Power Platform, and let me show you how you can create such a connector. I'm already in the custom connector sections. You can find it under more if you cannot find it in the short list right here. And here, when you want to create a custom connector, you can simply import an API, for example, using an open API file, which is precisely what I have in my solution and what I showed you before. So let me do the initial steps of creating this connector. So HR service 2, for example, will be the name of my second connector. And I'm going to import the JSON file that I showed you before with the open API definition. By doing that, the Power Platform connector creation UI will read the open API definition and will generate the basic settings for my connector. I will still need to provide a description for my connector, like HR service connector to consume a list of candidates, just for the sake of it. I will still have to provide a URL, which can be something at service.com. I don't care, because then I will show you the real one. And when we move to the security section, from here, you can configure the actual security settings of your connector. So, for example, I can choose any of these options, and I'm really interested in the open authorization one, because it's the one that I prefer, honestly. And with open authorization 2.0, we can then choose what is the identity provider that we want to use when consuming securely with open authorization our API. And in our scenario, clearly, it will be Azure Active Directory, which is the old name of Entra ID. By choosing Azure Active Directory, you can then configure all of the settings of what? Of the consumer application that you registered in Entra ID. So, for example, in our scenario, we had the HR service consumer application. So we should provide the client ID of that application right here. We should provide the client secret, which is, of course, hidden right now. So I'm not going to copy and paste it right now, but then I will switch to the actual and real connector. You need to provide the authorization URL, which usually and by default is the right one already. But in case you are on GCC tenants or stuff like that, you might need to change the URL. You can specify the tenant ID, or you can use common to use a multi-tenant application. And here it is another important part of the story. You need to provide the resource URL of the resource that you want to consume with this connector application. What do I mean? Well, when I registered my consumer application in Entra ID, and I said API permissions, and I granted the HR.consume permission to this application, actually this HR.consume permission refers to an API which is identified in Entra ID through its unique API URI. And this is precisely what you need to specify in the settings of your connector. So if you look at the HR service API, when we expose an API, this application ID URI is the value we are looking for. So we can paste it here, and we can specify the scope we are interested into, one or more. So HR.consume is the permission scope we want to use. So once you have configured all of the security settings, let me move to definition. Here you can see that thanks to the OpenAPI specification file that I provided while creating my connector, I already have all of the endpoints configured and available for my connector. So I see I have the get candidates endpoint that we used before. I have the add, the get, and the remove candidate. And for each of them, we have the definition of the request from a REST point of view. We can see what the content of the request and the response is. And we can do fine-tuning of our API. So now let me cancel this one and let me switch to the real one to show you how it is configured. And as I was telling you, okay, of course, here I have a nice looking or supposed to be nice looking icon. Again, I'm a developer, so I'm not really a good designer. I have the description, I have the real URL. This is the URL of my dev tunnel endpoint. And in the security settings, as I was showing you before, I have the real client ID, the real client secret, and all of the settings of my API. And here, as you can see, we have the redirect URL. So once you create your connector, and once you configure and save all of the security settings, you will then be able to copy the URL that you will need in the authentication settings of your consumer. And this is the URL that you can see right here. Copy it, paste it in the authentication settings of your consumer application, and you are done. Then again, we have the definition of all of the operations. And from the UI of the Power Platform connector, we can also test our connection. We can reuse a connection which I already created in my environment, and we can register a new connection, which basically means use a different set of credentials if you want, and create a fresh new access token and refresh token. I can rely on the one that I have already, and I can test my APIs. So, for example, I can test the get candidates operation. As you can see right here, this is the answer I've got back, and this is the JSON I've got back from my API, again, with the well-known list of candidates. One more time, if I go back to Visual Studio Code, we can see that I've got my request right here, again, under the identity of my user right now. So, we are almost there. Now we have the API, we have the application registered for the API, we have the consumer application registered, and we have the connector configured in the Power Platform. We simply need to use the connector inside our Copilot Studio agent. And that is my agent, the one I was showing you before. And if we look into the actions section, we can see that here I already have the action that I showed you before in action. But, sorry for the trick of words, but I can create a new action right now. And by searching right here for HR-service, which is the name I gave to my connector, I can see that I have all of the operations available for my custom connector. And the get all candidates is the one I was using before. So we can choose it. And we can create a new action targeting this operation. Of course, that's what I already did right here. So if I open and edit this one, the get all candidates will use user authentication from a security point of view, meaning that every single user who will consume this agent will have to authenticate against my backend API, and the consumption of the API will happen under the identity of the user with a delegated access token. So every single user will be able to see through the API what they are allowed to see based on their identity and based on their authorization profile, which is really important. Okay? Then we have, in case of any, the definition of all of the inputs and output arguments so that we can shape the input and the output that we will get from the action. We can also rely on the same actions also in topics. So if you want, you can create a topic and you can consume the same connector from a topic as well if you want to create a conversational flow, single turn or multi-turn in Copilot Studio. But what is really important that you can easily, once you have configured the connector, you can easily get access to the connector APIs through the Microsoft Copilot Studio interface. So I think that's all for me. I simply switch back to the slide deck for 1 second to say thank you, and back to you, Vesa.
Thank you, Paolo. Really cool. So, and thank you for the room as well. So, just to quickly explain, technology authentication is always complicated and it's hard, but it's super, well, it's all about security. So making sure that the API calls, whenever you're using Copilot Studio or those agents and the user's identity is being used, when you acquire the information from the target API system is really the trick and magic here. So which is really, really cool. But thank you, Paolo, on that one. From a timing perspective, we are now 8:30 in Las Vegas. The keynote starts at 9, so feel free to, if you need to start walking away from the room, it's all good. We'll be here until 9 in this room, and we'll be running in the keynote afterwards. We'll see who's in the room. But Marc will continue now with his demo about vibe coding with SharePoint Embedded, and then we'll go to the Sam's demo in the past.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey everyone, Marc Windle, product manager working on SharePoint Embedded. So hey everyone online and in the room. This is awesome to be here. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about vibe coding with SharePoint Embedded. First of all, if you haven't come across SharePoint Embedded, maybe check out some of the previous recordings of this series. I've done a number of sessions in there. But the short story is, it is a kind of a headless document store for your custom applications. It's built on top of SharePoint, of course, as the name implies. And it allows you to write a custom app where documents get stored in your tenant. And so you get all of the security and compliance promises that you'd expect from that, as well as collaboration. And all of that content is automatically semantically indexed for it being AI native. I'm not going to go into all those details, but what I want to do today is we're going to build together our very first kind of SharePoint embedded application. It is the sketchiest demo I've ever done. We're using some pre-release software, and we're going to vibe code with one of the vibe coding apps. We'll see, our mileage may vary, but we're going to do our best. Right now, we're looking at Visual Studio Code extension for SharePoint Embedded. That just helps you get started. So it makes it easy to get started. You can go into the marketplace and search for SharePoint Embedded. I already have it installed. So I'm going to slip over into this extension on the activity pane. You can see I'm already signed in. Okay, so I've got my tenant. I'm going to sign in with an administrator account on here. And I'm going to create an app. So part of the kind of the information architecture of SharePoint Embedded is a container type. So we need one of those in order to get started. I'm going to call it my trial container type. And we also need an Azure Entra app registration. I'll just call that my trial app. And so what this is going to do is going to create an Entra app registration, and as well as a SharePoint embedded container type that is associated with that. I need one container type worldwide. So in order to do that, I make one container type, and then I can install that container type on many tenants. So if I'm writing a multi-tenant kind of application as an ISV, I can do that and install it on individual tenants. Or if I'm just running a line of business app, I can do that and install it on my own tenant. So looks like I'm going to need to do some MFA here. Apologies. I was originally signed in. Good thing I have my phone handy. Okay, there we go. So what I'm doing here is I made that Azure Entra app registration, and I'm just consenting to the app that I just made. And so it's going to, take a second. Looks like I have that thing registered. So I'm going to expand this. This is, all the stuff that we just made. I'm going to actually get something started. I'll do a bit of explaining. So there's a number of things you can do to kind of play around with this new app, SharePoint Embedded app that I made. But we can run these sample applications, set up a Postman collection, kind of explore some of the APIs. What I'm going to do here is this new, and this is pre-release, so you're not going to see it in the release version, but it's coming soon, is to copy the vibe coding starter prompt. So I copied that to the clipboard. Now, all of these prompts are available already online. I'm going to show you a link to that later. But what I'm going to do is get things started. This is lovable. If you haven't come across this is a vibe coding application. There's lots of choices out there in the market. You can use GitHub Copilot or Vercel or Bolt. Lots of different vibe coding apps. If you haven't tried them, I really encourage you to kind of check those out and try our prompts. Try doing what we're doing here today. You'll be able to do that. So I pasted that prompt in there. I just want to get this going because it can take about 5 to 10 minutes to get one of these apps kind of off the ground. What this is going to do is AI is going to build an app for me. So these prompts are available if you go to aka.ms/sve-prompts. These prompts, the one that I used is available here, so you don't have to go through the Visual Studio Code extension. You can just go look at these prompts directly if you want. But I'm going to go back now that I kind of kicked that off. I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code. So that's running in the background here. And there's a couple of things that I want to do just to get things working. So I installed this. You can see local tenant registration. So I created a SharePoint embedded app. and now I've installed it on my tenant that I'm working on. And I can have guest apps and containers. And so containers is really the unit of storage. You can kind of think about it like a document library in SharePoint, but it's headless. My app gets to control the experiences of accessing and managing content in those containers. So that's where we put documents and things like that. First thing I'm going to do is create a container here. So I'm just going to call this, and actually this Fabricam, if I can spell, this vibe coding prompt that I put in there is an audit application. So I'm calling that Fabricam. It's Contoso Audit is the name of the app, and I'm going to call that container Fabricam. So it's as though we're like auditing the Fabricam company. So let's take a look. Looks like we have that container made. And there's one more thing that I want to do. In order, once that vibe coding app is actually made, I need to add a redirect URI. You saw Paolo do that in his app before. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go right click on my enter app registration, just view it in Azure. And it may ask me to log in again. We'll see. So this is going to take me directly to the Azure portal where I can kind of manage that enter app registration. All right. There it is. And I need to add a redirect URI. So there's only one single page app redirect URI. I need to go back into Lovable. And I'm going to open up the preview, which isn't live yet. But I'm just going to copy this to my clipboard. This is just kind of that temporary URL that my app will get hosted on once it's ready. And then I'm going to add that as a redirect URI so that we can log in once it's up and running. Okay. So I'll save this to my app registration. Awesome. And let's go back into Lovable and see how things are doing. All right. So looks like it's taking a little bit of time. I'm going to go into lovable.dev and we can take a look here. Looks like it has that thing loaded. So I've got a number of projects here. I was hoping that this one would be done, but it looks like it's going to take a little while. As I mentioned, these things can take about 5 to 10 minutes. I've made one earlier. I've actually made a number of these. We can check this out. So see, these are just the projects that I've made in Lovable. Same prompts. You can iteratively work on these things. And so there's actually a number of prompts in this library that I showed you earlier. You can add different types of capabilities, different types of container, permission management. Really, it's really quite straightforward. You can use kind of plain language and get this to add features to your app. So this is one that I've made earlier. We'll check this out. We can play with it, and maybe the one that we made live today is going to be ready. So I signed in here, and here this is this is working on a different container type. So I have 2 containers here representing kind of the individual audits that I would do. When I open one of these, I'm going to open up the Fabricam 2024 container. You can see I've got a number of documents in here. I'll open up this kind of documents folder. Right out of the gate, with that one prompt, you're able to get this kind of application experience, really. And you can go look at the source code and see how it works under the hood and how the APIs are being called for SharePoint Embedded. But you can do a whole bunch of things here, like upload files. And it really gets you, to a point where you have like a working application in, just a few minutes that can manage content in SharePoint Embedded. And not just manage content, but you have Office collaboration. So I can open up this right from my application, and we can, collaborate, co-author, @mention, and share documents here in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint online, as well as desktop. And then we have with SharePoint Embedded, there's a built-in previewer client. So you can preview PDFs, images, all sorts of hundreds of different file types, as well as streaming video. In fact, I have a video here, so let's just take a look at this. All you have to do is drop a video file in the SharePoint Embedded file storage container. All of the encoding is handled for you, so you can stream video directly from your application with just a few lines of code by putting content in there. So this is the kind of app that you can build right away. Looks like this one is still working. Again, it can take 5, 10, sometimes 15 minutes. It doesn't always work the first time, but you can iteratively say what your problem is and ask it to fix it. Again, you can do this with lots of different types of vibe coding apps that are out there and available. I really recommend you try it. It's a great way to kind of prototype something. It might not be the way you build, your production application, but if you're looking to build a prototype and get started quickly with SharePoint Embedded, I recommend you try it out, and I'll put the links to kind of all the information, the extension and the prompts that I showed into the chat, and hopefully we can get those on YouTube post as well. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for joining, and good luck vibe coding.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Cool, really cool setup, and it is awesome to see what you can get just by a few prompts. Now, for people in the room, the keynote starts within 20 minutes, so you don't want to miss that. So we'll see you later, so don't feel bad about leaving here. Now, on the call online, we have Sam Betts starting talking about a bit about business value on Copilot. Right, Sam?
Right. Can you hear me?
Yep, we are all good. We can hear you fine.
Good. Marvelous. Yeah. Well, hi, everyone. To both people left in the room that have not gone to the keynote yet. Hi, everyone online. Let me share my screen.
It will be good, definitely.
All right. Okay. All right. So this is what I want to talk about today.
Before you start, Sam, can you go to the presentation mode so we get it as a nicer reusable video in the post edit?
Remind me how we do that again.
Shift and F5 or the press slideshow.
Present in Teams?
No. You're already sharing the screen, so that's fine. Nope, not from there. In the PowerPoint, if you go to the slideshow tab.
Slideshow. I remember this happened last time.
And then start from this slide.
Start from this slide. Okay. Like that.
Oh, and then we need to still the flipping. It's in the display settings. If you go to the display settings in the top, you can flip this because we can see now the swap presenter view. The first one is the one a bit depending on what. Now we can actually see it nicely in online. So we'll be
okay.
Take it away.
Okay, cool. I mean, I don't have too much PowerPoint, quite honestly, so we'll get through it quite quick. Right. So this is a project that comes from. Well, actually, let me introduce myself first. My name's Sam Betts. Hi, everyone. I'm a cloud solution architect based in Madrid, and yeah, this project comes from a bunch of customer feedback that we got on how to rate Copilot in terms of value for a couple of different reasons. Right. So the first question is always, who should we onboard to Copilot? The paid one, especially. As you know, there's two versions of Copilot. You've got your free one, and then the more advanced paid one. Yeah, so a lot of customers have asked, how do I identify who should be on the paid, etc. And this is what this project tries to answer, and I'll show you how. Essentially, what we are doing is identifying groups of users that are using Office quite intensely, and then we're using their usage data as a justification for, going full Copilot. Because we've got customers who have a lot of frontline workers, for example. They just use Teams chat, probably wouldn't benefit from the full functionality. And then we've got other users who are very intensely using Office, Teams meetings, this kind of thing. And it's all about based on usage data, hard numbers, if you like, grouping them up by demographics, and then saying these people should have the full thing. That's kind of the first step. And then once they have it, how do we know that they are getting the full value out of it? That they like it, they are more productive, and so on. So that's the kind of thesis of this project. Now, A lot of people have also asked, where does this fit in terms of the Copilot dashboard that you may have seen? It fits in terms of the first part, which is who do we put onto Copilot and why? So there's a pretty big hole there right now. I mean, there are usage reports, but they're fairly basic as they stand out the box. And then in the Copilot dashboard, there's a section on impact. In fact, I think I have it up somewhere. Do I? Do I indeed? No, I don't. You may have seen it in a second. Copilot dashboard. It's part of Viva Insights now. So come on, where is it? Here it is. So there's a section here on impact of Copilot once it's deployed. And this is a nice out-of-the-box report in Viva Insights. And in fact, the value analytics project can even feed into this dashboard here. So it works kind of in side by side. So that's where it fits in. Onboarding then. Essentially what we do is look at a whole bunch of usage stats from, all across M365, even Copilot now as well. We have some customers who have rolled out Copilot chat, and they want to know specifically who is using Copilot chat in a way that they should have the full one. So I don't know if you've seen, you can upload files to Copilot chat. You can just in the chat window say, what do you think of this file? And actually what it does is upload it to a space in your OneDrive and then does a kind of analysis anyway there. But if they're doing that a lot, then they're prime candidates to get the full version. So that is now surfacing as a number of files uploaded to Copilot chat. But that plus a whole bunch of stuff, which we then cross with user attributes that we also read in from Enter ID to then get our most likely users that will benefit from Copilot. All right, so this isn't us coming and saying just everyone get Copilot, yay. This is us saying here's why these people should have Copilot. So a bit more of a data-based migration strategy, if you like. So this is essentially how it works. I may just jump into demo at this point. Yeah. Right. Let me perhaps show you the back end briefly. First of all, the project itself is here. It's on our PMP repository. So it's all open source. There's a couple of intro bits and pieces. There's a full setup guide here, plus a bunch of prerequisites as well. So it's all there. Once you run the setup, you'll end up with a bunch of stuff in Azure. It doesn't take too long to stand up. I won't do it live, but we're talking in the region of like half an hour tops, something like that. And then we end up with this being our kind of crown jewels of it, a SQL database with all of the usage stuff stored in one nice handy location that we can do all sorts of interesting queries on. Now, the interesting stuff, or the pretty stuff, if you like, is all done in Power BI here. This is essentially it's a test environment, hence we don't get too much data going on here. But here is where I'm going to define my criteria for who's an active user. So I'm going to say people that have certainly been active in emails, also editing and viewing files, a whole bunch of stuff that I can say would make a heavy user of Office. Now, as you can see, there's not many not many users that reach that because this is a test environment. This has been deployed, by the way, to quite a few, I'll say, a decent number of large customers, at least in Spain. So this does work. Now, we can also filter by license, by job title, department, a whole bunch of stuff, which by default comes from Enter ID, but we can also bring in from outside, being that this is Power BI and awesome like that. And essentially, once we've built up our criteria of what a active user is, we can even, in fact, if I quickly jump here, we can even split that. At the moment it's on department and then email, but I could add another layer in, so country and then department. Hang on a sec. Let me do that, for example. So we're doing, Switzerland, country, and then department. Again, in this case, it's not particularly interesting results because of the data set. But once I have my criteria set up, then it is a case of going here and exporting that to Excel, being that these people or this group do lots of stuff. Let's get them on Copilot. So that's kind of step one. We want to be able to justify our business case here, rather than just, migrating random people to Copilot. All right. Step two, or the second part, is how do we know it's any good once it's deployed? I mean, this is for a couple of reasons. Like, A, is it worth the money? And B, maybe there's a training issue and we need to look at how we, ramp up users. All of these things are obviously concerns once it's deployed, but essentially we want to justify the money that's being paid for it. Now, this is a bit more technical, so I'm going to jump into Teams here. All right, so essentially what we have is a bot, which, as you can see, I think this is the bot. Yeah, I have a feedback bot here. Let me make it a bit bigger. It knows, essentially the system knows when I've done something with Copilot, specifically around like files and meetings and so on. And it just wants to know how my experience was with this specific interaction. Okay, this is automatic. The system knows when you've done something with a file or a meeting in this case. By the way, this is all just from the audit log, in case you're wondering where this information comes from. We just import that data. So I edited this file. How was that then? Yes, I remember that was brilliant. Couldn't have been any more useful. Bot's very happy, as you can see. Now, there's some extra info here that I can, if I want, as a user, provide. By the way, I can just tell the bot to go away and just never bother me again if I hate this kind of thing, which you may do. But there's some extra stuff here that I can fill out, which is customizable. In this case, I've got just a couple of basic questions. And the bot says, thank you very much. And will probably ping me again tomorrow, if I don't say otherwise, about some more stuff that I've done with Copilot. Now, all of this is so that when us as the administrators want to see how our, users are handling Copilot, we can see, based on our KPIs, what's important to us, how users are actually getting on with Copilot. So, how many, like here, for example, the report for this bit is not particularly advanced yet, but the most positive question is, how many minutes has Copilot saved you? Actually can't see the response right now, but is in progress. We can see that in general, apparently people don't like Copilot based on the questions that we've set up. So let me have a quick look at that. We can see here the questions that I've actually defined, the follow-up questions. Here's an adaptive card that the bot will send. And then the questions that kind of get tagged onto the end. So it's like, how many minutes has Copilot saved you? For some reason, the optimal value is 0. Doesn't seem like a particularly optimal value to me. I would probably say greater than 0. But what you can see here is I can build up a series of questions that are important to me in terms of what I feel Copilot should be good at, right? And then the bot will simply answer that the next time it sends out a survey. And I can see here somewhere, based on that setup, whether or not that's a good or bad answer. So yeah, so this is like your own feedback on your own terms, essentially, right? Not on Microsoft terms or anything like that. Last bit, if I've got a couple of minutes. There's another Power BI that is kind of comes with out the box.
So you'll have a few minutes. Can you put this window in a full screen mode, because it's better in the recording. Excellent, thank you.
Okay, yeah. So it looks big to me. So yeah. All right. There's a report here that basically gives you an overview of what's going on. We can see what sort of interactions we are having, filter again by department, or any other metric that we like. Our ratings, so overall, what are the users saying about overall satisfaction? What sort of activity they're doing, and we can sort of see that by type of activity, or again by one of our demographics. And there is a section on time saved as a sort of bolt-on question. So what do users feel like they're saving, and we can quantify that as well. So there we go. Again, this is a solution that is in use right now. Some customers just want the onboarding stuff, which is fine. Other customers are interested in more follow-up questions as well. It's a tool to justify your Copilot with hard numbers. There we go. Can't say it any clearer than that. So cool. That's me, I think. Any questions?
I think we have so many people in. Typically, we don't have live audio questions because there's so many people in the call still. But if there's any questions for Sam, please do ask in the chat. That's just the easiest way to actually set up. We're in a way closing in the timeline of the things. Thank you, Sam, for great demo and great solution. Really cool setup. And let me actually share my screen.
You're welcome.
So we'll close up for today. But really cool and super valuable thing. And again, we were chatting with, I can't remember the person's name, related on the statistics and the business value and everything else. And of course, you need to think through the business value of Copilot for sure, and thinking out the business scenarios. But then this kind of a statistics on the usage is also really cool because that's a secondary dimension on the discussion on, okay, so are people using it? Do we actually see an uptake on the usage? Are people happy about it? And then we can pay more, buy more licenses of the Copilot more widely for the company. So really cool setup. Thank you, Sam. Excellent. Thank you, Paolo. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sam. Really cool setup today. And we were able to actually make this work nicely, even as a hybrid experience. Now, next week, we'll be back in the normal business, doing this fully 100% online. So we have at least 2 demos right now scheduled, which is Bob German talking about authentication to a declarative agents and API plugin. And then Gomola Mohabi is going to talk about creating multimodal AI prompts in Power Platform and using them in Power Automate flows. Really technical setup for next week. That's on the 13th of May, 8 a.m. Pacific time. We might have a third demo there as well, but let's see how that goes. Now, in the meanwhile, you can join on the Discord server and have a discussion on things. There's more than 2,800 people already there as a member, which is really cool setup. But we also want to always remind on our feedback forms. So we're interested on how did the call go, what kind of other content you would like to see, ideas on improving this process. So please fill in the form. This recording will be available within 24 hours on the Microsoft Community Learning YouTube channel. So if you missed out something, you can always go back on that recording within the YouTube. So you do want to subscribe today, so you'll know when the recording is available. And then we'll share updates in LinkedIn and Blue Sky and Twitter. The next call is on 13th of May. But I guess that's it, live from Vegas. Now it's a bit smaller room. A lot of people went to the keynotes, which is cool, but we did have more than 25 people in the room as an audience, which is good setup. So thank you everybody who were in the room, and thank you for everybody who were online. Thank you for being part of the community. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.